The sky is not falling, ATL. I repeat, the sky is not falling.
I'm Aaron Freeman, and here we go again.
I'm Jarvis Davis. It's only one game.
Rise up, A-Town. It's the Falcons Squad. Everything Atlanta Falcons every week. Breaking down all the big hits and game-changing plays from the ATL. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Straight from the ATL, the Falcons Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to the Falcons Squad Show, your home for the best Atlanta Falcons football talk. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me, our Locked On Falcons host, Aaron Freeman, Locked On analyst, Jarvis Davis, and she'll join us in a moment, Falcons senior reporter, Tori McElhaney. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. And our squad show is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So we're going to try our best to find the good in Sunday's loss, like scratching the surface of just what Michael Penix Jr. can do beyond his arm. And holding Mike Evans to 51 yards and no touchdowns, and Bucky Irving to only gaining 2.6 yards per carry should give you hope, and we'll chat about why. But alas, special teams wasn't very special for the Falcons Sunday. We'll download on that, piping up, piping down. But first, we have to talk about how the Falcons succeeded early but failed late in a 23-20 loss to their division nemesis, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So here's something interesting that Tori shared on X. And like I said, she'll join us in a minute and she'll be able to weigh in. But I want to pose this to you guys first. And she had a great article there as well. Of course, you know, you can check out her work on AtlantaFalcons.com. Quote, Younghoe Koo's clutch kicks have bailed Atlanta out before, but a 44-yard miss in week one heightens concerns for 2025 after issues already arose in 2024. Is this a blip or a trend? Either way, it's something that needs to be addressed now in Atlanta. Jarvis, that was Tori's article. She had a refrain about it similarly a few hours before that. For you, is what we saw from Koo a blip or a trend?
It's a trend. I mean, because he's healthy now. The issue or the excuse was last year that he's hurt, he's injured, he's not himself, and all that stuff. He had to figure things out, and they put him on, IR to end the season, and they went with the other guy whose name I can't even remember right now because he was so Patterson, whatever his first name was, Patterson, Mr. Patterson, and Mr. Patterson did Riley Patterson, as a matter of fact. So yeah, I think that's the thing that we were saying last year as to why he's having these issues and making kicks that we're used to him making.
Yeah.
What's the excuse now? I'm tired of the excuses because I talked about this on the post-game squad show. Like, I don't want to be talking about issues from last year. Those things aren't carrying over. There were some things that the Falcons did really well, and they got rid of the 2024 stuff. Oh, they aren't putting any pressure on the quarterback. Yeah, we saw some pressure. They moved Baker Mayfield off the spot, and they had some opportunities to bring him down, but if there was some more rush discipline, they probably could have got a couple more sacks. But when you talk about evolving, I'm gonna go back to that. When you talk about evolving from year to year and needing to see improvement from year to year, and if we're talking about a kicker having an opportunity to take this game to overtime because your quarterback was playing lights out for you, basically put the team on his back. And we're talking about the same stuff that we saw last year. So, yeah, this is a trend for me. It has to be a trend because the injury excuse is no longer. He's healthy. Yeah. There's no other excuses right now. There's just no excuse for it right now.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like you said, Jarvis, and I think it's fully acceptable to go back to the refrain of elevating, right, or evolving, because that's what you're expecting your each and every player to do when they take the field, including your kicker. And 2 of 3 is not evolving, right? I mean, Aaron, when we look at it, great that the long field goal that Koo made was a 41-yarder, but on the same token, absolutely gut-wrenching that you couldn't make a kick just 3 more yards. And then you made it in like a practice space, but when it really counted, in the moment that it mattered the most, to give this team an opportunity, this Falcons team an opportunity to get to overtime. And then let's see what happens. You're in your own building, your fans are there, that momentum maybe is shifting your way, or maybe you're in a moment where you're like, we got a second chance, we're going to take advantage of it. But when your kicker doesn't give you a chance, and that's the same thing we've been saying since like that, was it week 11 or whatever, that game against the Saints, that's a problem to keep having that same conversation. But I will give it to you objectively, free, to let me know what you think of it, whether you think it's a blip or a trend.
Well, I would like to say it's a blip, because for all we know, Younghoe Koo will not miss a kick for the next 6 to 7 games or whatever. It's typically, we like to overreact to week 1. And this could be an overreaction. This could age poorly, but Jarvis is right. Like, it is a trend at this stage based off of the information that we know now, going back to last year, as you just pointed to. We saw Koo miss a kick in the preseason, and we're like, oh, this is an issue. And so as based off of the information we have right now, so far it is a trend. Now, hopefully we will look back at this 6 weeks from now and be like, oh man, Younghoe Koo has been lights out for the next, several games and made some big time kicks and all that stuff. And we'll be able to look back and say, oh yeah, that week 1 game, he seems to always miss kicks against Tampa Bay. It always seems to be the case. And it's just like, oh, well, that's just anytime Younghoe Koo plays the box, he's going to miss a kick or two. That is always going to cause us to pull our hairs out. But, every other game, it's going to be fine. But until we get there, we're not there yet. It's a trend until otherwise known, until he can start a reverse trend of making kicks. Yeah. At this point in time, the pattern is him missing kicks. And that's, unfortunate.
Yeah.
Can I add something too, T? Can I add something to what I made an observation? Me and our guy, Joe Patrick, former co-worker, T of Tenitra and I, just in there watching him warm up. He missed the exact same way.
Yeah.
In warm-ups. And it was a 47-yarder, if I remember correctly. Pushed it right to the right and almost hit us, like he was like, hey, I know that Jarvis over there watching me, he's trying to evaluate me, look at me, trying to see what's going on. But yeah, like it was the same scenario. No pressure at all. He still missed that bad boy in warm-ups. I'm just like, something is wrong. Something is wrong with him, whether it be, I'm not going to give him an injury excuse. Something mentally is wrong with him now. Like, not that he need to be in the psych ward, but I'm just saying, he just can't get it. He can't get right. Or at least he's not going to be the guy that we're used to. I need to erase the old Younghoe Koo, right? Is that fair? Is that okay, Aaron? Can I erase the old Younghoe Koo now and I have to get adjusted to him? Or T, or free? Can I get adjusted to the new kid? And it'll be kind of okay if he misses some kicks because he's new. He's finding his way in NFL. I'd rather have that conversation than say, okay, when is the old Younghoe Koo going to come back? And I just can't. I'm not in that headspace right now because they've gotten rid of some things. They got rid of some people. This is a new era for this team, and we should not be carrying over old stuff that's funky. Like, put it in the wash machine and let it go. Like, put that bad boy on the spin cycle. It's time to clean up, man. Like, we can't be carrying over that dirt from last year. That's all I'm doing.
And I think one good thing is that we're not carrying over, and I don't want to call dirt Kirk, but Kirk dirt. Just the allegory just kind of did fall on me. But
it's kind of hard to continue my analogies. I understand, T.
Yeah. I'm like, it's not lost on where you were going with it, but I'm going to try not to.
They can be a little rough sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to try to move into maybe a positive place. So how about this one, Jarvis? How about this one, Aaron? Instead of talking about dirt, how about we talk pay dirt, as in Michael Penix Jr., because I believe what we saw from him was pay dirt. I believe we saw the very, very good in what Michael Penix was able to do. And I think we talked about this yesterday, but obviously we've had almost 24 hours to kind of digest what we saw and kind of decompress from it as well. And Michael Penix Jr., I don't think that you were exaggerating, Jarvis, by saying he was pretty much putting the team on his back and saying, now let's ride with me because I got you. He did it on and I guess for me, I'm impressed with both ways, right? Like he did it on the ground with just six carries for 21 yards. But again, we're not asking him to be world beater as a mobile QB threat. We're just asking him to make plays when it matters the most, or extend drives when it matters the most, or extend plays. But 27 to 42, you're not asking him to throw 42 times every game. But at least if he's going to throw 42 times and he starts approaching a QBR rating or rating of 100 and he's nearing 300 yards, no interceptions and a touchdown. I mean, I think that you really see something good in him, Jarvis, in what we like. I guess scratching the surface was a positive for Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah, it was beautiful to watch because the young man just is so reserved in those moments. Like you don't really see like the emotion and everything come out. You know, he did a little dance after he got in the end zone in the fourth quarter. That was cool. That was dope. You know, had a little choreographed type situation going on. That was dope to watch. But just in those moments though, he's like stone faced. Like almost like an Eli Manning type, you know, but don't be all the way Eli, man. We don't need the turnovers and stuff like that. But just how he just approaches, how he just comes up big in big moments. I feel like it was just so cool to watch. And one of my favorite plays from that game, and not necessarily the highlight plays, it was one particular play where Elijah Wilkinson had gave a little pressure to Hassan Reddick, which was pretty consistent with that. And he was like, Reddick was like right at his feet. And he had gone through his first read, wasn't there, and he kind of circled back to Casey Washington on the backside, and it's almost like he was off balance, and he threw a perfect strike to Casey Washington right there on the ground. He just caught that bad boy. I was like, man, it was just an amazing play. That was like my favorite play from yesterday. So I feel like this 9 came to play. I was tweeting out during the game. I was like, man, this dude is him. I don't know what y'all think this is. Like, I really feel like he put himself on the map yesterday. The only thing that was missing was getting the win.
Yeah. And that to me is going to be the interesting conversation that we're going to have this year, where like going into the season, I was pretty optimistic that Michael Penix by year's end would prove to everybody that he's the quarterback. But I think a lot of people sort of conflated that with like, well, that probably means the Falcons are going to be successful this year. And it's like, I don't know if those two things are as a one-to-one correspondence as much as people would like to make it. Like people love to make it like, hey, if you have a good quarterback, you're going to win games. And if you have a bad quarterback, you're going to lose games. And it's like, generally that's generally true, but like it's not always true. And so like, I feel like this week 1 performance is kind of that in a nutshell, where it's like you see Michael Penix, you know, making the plays, particularly late in games. That was a consistent through line last year that, you know, he wouldn't always get off to the fastest starts. And I think the Falcons, I think back to when Matt Ryan early in his career, where like he would kind of struggle the first couple of drives and then the Falcons would go no huddle to try to jumpstart him. And like, that's the thing I've consistently noticed with Penix, like 4-minute drill, 2-minute drill, like he's on the money. But all the times between that, you know, it's not to say he's playing poorly or anything like that, but he could just be a little sharper. And part of me just wonders, could the Falcons borrow that blueprint from Mike Mularkey of all people, of just basically like, okay, you know, and in this game it's different because you score on the opening drive. And so that changes the math a little bit. So like for me, it's just one of those things where it's like when he gets into a rhythm, things are looking great. And you see that consistently at the end of halves, but like, you kind of want to see that a little bit earlier in game so that you can just get that one, maybe that put together that one touchdown drive, maybe early in the second quarter or early in the third quarter or whatever, that could be be the difference in winning these close ball games in the end. But other than that, like, again, that's not a Michael Penix issue. That's just more like, okay, what do we do as a coaching staff to try to jumpstart this offense a little earlier rather than what has been consistently the case in Michael Penix's 4 starts, which is final 3 minutes of the second quarter, great. Final, 5 minutes of the fourth quarter, great. The times between those points, we just need a little bit more greatness. And I think Penix has it in him, but you just got to see what tweaks you can make from an offensive coaching standpoint to get that out of him.
I'm buying what you're selling, Free, because I had that same exact thought during the game. And I can't remember exactly what the play it was. They had just crossed the 50. I was like, come on, man, tempo. Let's go, get on the ball, because what that does for, the opposing team is they have to keep that same personnel on the field. And then you can have those a couple of plays, the play call with Zach, and then he communicating with MPX and just say, okay, all right, here's what we have. And MPX even went into it after the game as far as just from having a certain amount of plays that you can go to or check to if you get a different look. And I think that, putting him in that situation would have been amazing, because what you want to do is, when you have two teams that are so close to each other as far as who's good and who's not, right? I feel like those are the type of things that are, will sustain drives and potentially be able to put points on the board. Not necessarily field goals, but I'm talking about like touchdowns, because of you being able to switch it up and making them react to what you're doing. And I think that would have been a good spot to do it, because I think it was right. It was almost, I think it was like beginning of the third quarter-ish. As far as that drive, I had that same thought. So yeah, Free, I like what you're talking, man, when it comes to that.
Indeed. And we promised these guys that we would talk about some goods and some positives. And there were some more goods on offense that we can talk about, but we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the bad and some missed opportunities as well. Tori's going to join us on the other side. So we want to talk to her, get her involved in this conversation about the offense and the defense when we take it under further review. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. So if you've been playing Prize Picks lately, you know how much fun it is, and you know it's important to stay locked in for these entire season. It's quick, it's easy, and honestly, you're going to find it to be your favorite way to follow along with football. You got to love projections like last night. If you projected what Josh Allen was going to do, not just in his passing game, but in how he took over that game with his legs, good luck for you. And good luck for you on Prize Picks. So download the Prize Picks app today. Use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. So, Tori, we're going to jump right back in. Good to see you. Good to have you with us. And we're talking a little bit about offense. I want to give you an opportunity as well, because Michael Penix Jr. had a good day. So wanted to talk to you about what you thought on his performance, rather. What impressed you there? But also, T, if you'll kind of take us into what impressed you, any other impressions positive on the offense as well.
Yeah, so I think for starters, I think that Michael Penix handled himself fairly well. I thought that he ran the offense pretty well. I also think that at the end of the day, and I said this on our post-game podcast, but at the end of the day, Michael Penix is a gamer, and you saw him kind of take the game into his own hands and made something happen out of nothing. And I think that's kind of what you get with Michael Penix Jr. And it's why he is so fun to watch. The other side of the coin, though, is that the Falcons really didn't push the ball downfield the way that I thought they were going to. And when they did, Michael Penix was not accurate in those opportunities. He went 0 for 7 on throws beyond 15 yards, which, those are lower percentile throws anyways. But the fact that he was 0 for 7 in those big play moments, I think it's not worrisome, but I do think it's something that needs to be rectified fairly quickly. Something else that I am even more concerned with, though, when it comes to this offense is the lack of consistency within the run game. I've said before that a young quarterback's best friend is a consistently productive run game that you can fall back on when things aren't really working in the pass game. And for me, seeing the lack, let's be real. The Atlanta Falcons only rushed for an average of 2.5 yards per carry against Tampa Bay. And they were implementing, I've actually gone back and I've watched all of the run plays from Sunday. And my biggest takeaway is that they were really trying to implement more of a gap style with Bijan Robinson specifically, whereas with Tyler Algier, they were kind of doing their more than not, were really going towards that like stretch zone that ultimately was their bread and butter last year. That still seemed to work. The problem with the gap style was that there was no gap really for Bijan Robinson to run through. That's why he only averaged 2 yards per carry. And I would argue, I haven't gone back and looked at it, but I would imagine that where Tyler Algier, their yards before contact was not very much at all. And I think that as I'm kind of looking at what needs to change going into week 2, it's like getting the run game going again. I don't know if it's going back to the stretch zone style that worked so well for you last year, but the difference is they're doing it to the left a lot because you don't have Caleb McGarry on the right side anymore. And that's not really, if you're being honest, like it's not really Jake Matthews' game. Like that's not his strength as a left tackle in the same way that it is with Caleb McGarry on the right. So you're seeing kind of this perfect storm of things in the run game where they're trying something new. They aren't really able to do their bread and butter as well as they have been in the past, and especially last year. So all of those things make it really difficult for a run game to get going. And that doesn't do anything for, I think, Michael Penix and the pressure that he was under in the pocket when you can have kind of like a guy pinning his ears back and getting after him, like coming off the edge. I think that there were a lot of good things that Michael Penix did, but the inability for the Falcons offense in totality to get going kind of made it you have something good with Michael Penix, but ultimately there was no next step for this offense that I saw.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned that, Tori, because that's kind of the theme that we've had the first segment and even running into last night's postgame, kind of what was that elevation or that evolution, if you will, that you didn't see yesterday, but that you were expecting to see and that you still want to see. So, Aaron, for you, with Michael Penix Jr. or anyone else that impressed on the offense, who was that for you? What did you see kind of out of him, or what do you want to see that you didn't quite see yesterday?
Well, when I look at the offense, again, we talked earlier about Penix playing well in certain stretches. And then when I look at the rest of the offense, there were moments for other players. Like, we talked about this on the post game yesterday. Like Kyle Pitts had a solid day. He didn't take over the game like we've seen him do a couple of times against Tampa Bay. I'll give love to Casey Washington. He kind of stepped up to fill some of the shoes of Darnell Mooney. Didn't quite have the sort of the game sort of changing play at the end there. But that's not Casey Washington's fault. It's unfortunate that, Antoine Winfield plays on the other team. And it's like, okay, well, there's going to be a point in this game where Antoine Winfield's going to make a play that's going to completely derail the Falcons. And that was the point. It's like, all right, yeah, he does this every time. Yes. And so but I do think Casey Washington had a solid performance that relatively speaking, I think we talked about it on the postcast where there's probably several plays that Darnell Mooney probably makes, and going to Tori's point with the attacking vertically, you probably see the team be a little bit more aggressive, taking shots down the field, and probably you see them complete more of those passes down the field if Darnell Mooney's in the game. But I'll give Casey Washington some love. I had very low expectations for what Casey Washington was going to do. I kind of was just like, oh, he's going to be out there getting cardio, running routes, and probably not getting any targets. But I think he ultimately finished with 6 or 7 targets in this game. So that to me was pretty impressive for him, because I wasn't necessarily buying all the hype from training camp and whatnot. And so I was like, okay, that's solid, Casey. It's a big improvement from last year where you had 2 catches for 13 yards or whatever it was. So he's already tripling his career highs in just one game.
I smell petty. Some petty in there somewhere.
I mean, sure, Jarvis. I'm always petty. There's always petty somewhere, buried deep.
Buried deep.
Yeah. Just
Yeah,
so far below the surface that you'll never detect it. But yeah.
Hey, we'll talk about that later. But for me, I think that one of the things that I recognize and I actually like, I thought that the Falcons I saw some tackle down guard pulling situations, and they were able to get yardage. That was dope to see in my eyes, because we aren't used to seeing that. Tori talking about with the gap schemes and stretch zone, outside zone, inside zone, all that stuff. Those are some of the things that we're used to seeing, but to kind of see that tackle down guard pulling around and then Bijan finding his way up through the hole, I think they had some success with that.
They had one.
Right, basically one.
They had one play that you're describing that worked.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. And they never went back to it. I'm confused. So when you have success like that, it's stuff that you're not used to doing. But when you're, like I said, when you have teams that are so closely, in as far as where they are, as far as where they rank in contenders and all that good stuff, those little things like that are things that can kind of help you get you over the top. And if you would have probably done that, gone back to that, you probably would have had some success, because at the end of the day, people watch film on you. They are going to cater their game plan to what you put on tape. And what you put on tape is not that. But when you did it, you had success. So you got to go back to it. And I thought Zach was real. He was falling in love with the 12 personnel a lot. And I guess to keep Kyle Pitts in the game and not be obvious, and have Charlie Warren in the game as well. So I didn't like that combination, so to speak. But once they went back to 11 personnel and they had Drake in tight end line, I thought he made some good blocks as well. I'm not surprised by that, because Drake is just that type of guy, right? So I think there were some things that I like, like the whole tackle down guard around. It was beautiful to see. It was executed very well, and I didn't see it again. So for me, it's doing the necessary things that you have to do to win a game. I understand, hey, we want to be able to do this. We're one of the top 10 teams coming into the season and running the football outside zone. That's what Bijan is able to get off and do his thing. But if it's not working, you got to have a backup plan. You got punched in the mouth, and you never really recovered when it comes to being able to run the football.
Yeah, and one thing that was, thankfully, it seems, unless I missed an update, and if I did, guys, you please chime in. But one thing that maybe wasn't a gut punch or kind of punched in the mouth at the end of the game was obviously Drake London going down, suffering the shoulder sprain, but being considered day-to-day as of late Sunday, according to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport's sources. And Tori, it just seems like, that's a very good sign. And it's important for that initial report on Drake's status, especially when you consider Darnell Mooney still working his way back and the impact that we saw on the game without a Darnell Mooney there for its entirety. And of course, Drake not being available the last couple minutes.
Yeah, I think honestly, if I'm a fan kind of listening to us talk, I would kind of work under the assumption moving forward this week that we're really not going to get answers on Drake London until game time. I do think that even if we talk to Raheem this afternoon around 3:00 and we get more information on Drake London's status, I think that he probably will continue to say that he is day-to-day, and Drake London will probably end up showing up on the injury reports all week. And then he will probably receive a questionable designation on Friday. And then we're going up until game time to make a decision on Drake London via the inactives. I see that's how this thing is going to play out, along with Darnell Mooney also doing kind of this same thing. Because if you're the Falcons and Drake London left the game, so he's obviously injured. Why would you give up any more information to the Minnesota Vikings if you don't have to? Yeah. So I just kind of knowing how this team operates, knowing kind of how Raheem Morris operates when it comes to injuries, I would just mentally prepare for that to be the cadence of how this week is going to go. And I think that that's fine. That's all well and good. I mean, I personally am because I'm the one that has to do the injury reports. But I think ultimately, that's where I see this thing going. But you would hope that even in all of that, you get Drake London back on Sunday. You get Darnell Mooney back on Sunday, because this is a big game. This is a primetime game, and I guarantee you that Drake London and Darnell Mooney specifically are going to want to be up, even if maybe they're not even 100%. So I'm curious to see how all of this shakes out, but I do not think that we're going to get any answers until closer to game time.
Tori, you sound like you've done this before when it comes to the Falcons.
I've ridden this roller coaster before.
Absolutely.
It seems like, you got some experience with this. Yep. I echo a lot of those sentiments. We'll see what happens, I think, with Drake London and obviously Darnell Mooney, and we'll probably be sitting there, Sunday night, 6:30 or whatever it is, before, when
90 minutes before kickoff.
Yeah, the inactives are announced, being like, I don't know if these guys are going to play, and we'll find out, So I think that's good advice for folks to kind of mentally prepare that until 6:35 on Sunday night, we're not going to really know and get much clarity on what those guys' status is for Sunday night football in week 2.
I will say this for all you Falcons fans and listeners, and I'm saying this to myself as well. If you start hearing them working out guys at the wide receiver spot, I would be very concerned. So I think that if we don't hear any tryout wide receivers, or they brought in such and such to do this, to work out for the team and everything like that, if you don't hear anything like that, I think the Falcons will be okay. I think they'll be in a pretty good space. Either one or both of them may play, right? So because if it's a potential where one of them will not play, I would assume that they would try to bring someone in, to at least as a break in case of emergency, a veteran that will kind of make sense. They have been here, maybe bringing DJ Chark back, right? Or in that particular sense. But yeah, this bad. They're gonna ride this bad boy out all the way until they have to tell us, hey, he's gonna play or he's not. So yeah, I would think from that standpoint, if I'm getting concerned, if they don't bring anybody to work out, might be okay.
Yeah. Well, next up, we'll switch gears to the defense. What do we think about the defense? The good, the bad, and maybe some missed opportunities there. We'll talk about that. And next up. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Game Time. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets could be a hassle between queues, long screens, and prices jumping at checkout and login screens. That is, it's frustrating, and that is why you got to go with Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. And if you pull up on Game Time in just a couple of taps, you'll see amazing deals. And I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. So download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Now, terms do apply, but again, that promo code is LOCKEDONFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. So, Aaron, when we think about the pass rush, that's probably, other than obviously the high-powered offense, it's really been the conversation about the pass rush, kind of anticipating what we would see coming together on Sunday. And, definitely some positives. At one point, Baker Mayfield 0 for 6 when Jeff Ulbrich sent pressure. He sent 40% of the time. I think that was third in the league on sending pressures for Sunday. But now that everybody's kind of had a chance to review the tape, what did you think overall about Brick and how he schemed things up Sunday from start to finish, including even having Floyd, Dorless, Onyemata, Harrison starting at the front?
Well, I thought it was funny, the irony of it. Like, the Falcons were able to generate like pretty much pressure at like twice the rate that they had last year, but they only got 1 sack, which is like half the average number of sacks that they had roughly last year. And so it's like, okay, the more that changes, the more that stays the same with the Atlanta Falcons, right? They dial up the pressure and go down in sacks. But I thought to me, the main issue I had watching the game was a lot of that pressure, as you mentioned, T, came when they were dialing up pressure, when they were sending those simulated pressures, when they were sending a fifth and sixth guy, and that their ability to win with just 4, while it was there and still an improvement from what we saw last year, wasn't quite all that was cracked up to be, at least in this first game, and especially going up against a Bucs offensive line that had some issues up front that you were hoping to see the Falcons take advantage of. I think they were able to get effective pressure on Baker Mayfield in this game, and that was a big reason why they were able to keep a lid on this offense to the tune of 23 points. But there were, obviously moments throughout the game where they weren't able to get effective pressure on Baker Mayfield, and he was able to, hit them for some big plays on the back end, as well as being able to extend plays outside the pocket, create with his legs, as well as buy time for his receivers. And again, it's just a work in progress. I think with this Falcons pass rush, I think there were positive signs. I thought Zach Harrison did, a lot of good work in this game, rushing, both inside and outside. You saw moments from everybody, had a couple of moments here or there, but you just are waiting for that one guy to kind of emerge as like the guy, the sort of alpha, the Batman, or whatever you want to call it, in this pass rush room. And we're not quite there yet. It's still early in the season. But I think this game was a step in the right direction, but I still think there's room to grow as far as the pass rush goes.
Mm-hmm. And what about you, Jarvis, when you kind of look at, and of course we talked a little bit about it last night, but kind of drilling down into it today, what did you think about Jeff Ulbrich and kind of the strategy that he used throughout the game?
I enjoyed it. I mean, that first half was exactly what you want from, like he had a quarterback that was below 50%. He made some questionable throws. He was off his mark. I know people don't want to hear this. Y'all close your ears. But what I'm about to say, they were able to affect the quarterback, right? Like Baker was not Baker Mayfield. But you start in the second half when those things stop getting there or start putting that pressure on. He got more comfortable in the pocket, and then he was able to make those necessary throws. He was able to find the rookie in Emeka Egbuka, who had a coming out party, right, with 2 touchdowns and all that stuff. So he was able to connect with the young pup. But for me, I feel like, you just didn't have guys out there. You didn't see like Aaron said. It's kind of like what Aaron said. Like you didn't have one guy that just pop out, because coming into this game, I was expecting Leonard Floyd to be that guy, right? Like a veteran someone who hasn't had less than 8.5 sacks in the past few years, right? That's consistency right there. And for him not to be able to take advantage of a backup tackle, right? Tristan Wirfs wasn't there, and nobody really took advantage of that. But I will say this, you got to give Tampa credit. Like they had their tight ends chipping. They were like, we won't be beat off this edge. We're going to make sure Baker has time. And what that did was it gave him more time to be able to extend plays. So and then you had times where the Falcons were, a part of that, right? They were part of that, his extending plays, because they didn't have rush discipline and, hopping inside when you think you can beat a guy inside. No, man. Nope, not with Baker. You got to stay on that edge. Make sure you keep that outside shoulder free, because you can't let that dude get outside the pocket. And he was able to take advantage of it every single time, where it be extending, getting outside the pocket and running for a first down, or getting outside the pocket and your linebacker has to cover a little bit longer, a wide receiver. They got the matchup that they want. So yeah, it was just too many instances where you just said that. I like it overall. The totality, I like the game plan and everything. But when it boils down to it, you start to really dig into it. There were moments where guys weren't out there executing. And I think that, whether you could chalk it up to the first game, or you got a lot of young guys still trying to find their footing, James Pierce Jr., Jalen Walker, all of those particular situations. But I think just overall, I like the game plan, but they're going to have to be some work to continue to drill into these guys that, hey, man, you got to rush as a unit. You can't be out there free balling trying to get to the quarterback because you think you can get there. It just doesn't work like that. It doesn't. It doesn't, unless you're Aaron Donald or Myles Garrett, and we know we don't have any of those guys on this squad. So you have to look out for your homeboy. Like, if your defensive tackle is getting that push up the middle and you think you can beat your man inside, you're killing your homeboy right now. Hold what you got, keep contained, and your D tackle might get there, or he might be able to get his hand up and knock the ball down because Baker Mayfield is 5'11" and 3/4. Like, so it's just those things like that. I feel like that's the evolution of these young pass rushers.
And Tori, since Jarvis kind of went in both directions, definitely feel free to do the same in terms of what you liked about Jeff Ulbricht's scheming yesterday. But if you want to talk about some opportunities there for the players as well, go right ahead.
Yeah, so I think ultimately I kind of am on the same page with Free and Jarvis, is that I feel better about the defense's start in week 1 than I feel about the offense's start in week 1. I know they're two separate entities, but I feel better about the starting point of this defense and what I feel like they can build upon more than what I saw from the offense, which was a bit worrisome. In saying that, I think that the Falcons, and this is not to make excuses or anything like that, but I don't think they're as far away defensively as what maybe some people think just from watching it. And I say that because of how close they were to getting their hands on 3 or 4 balls in the secondary. There were a few times where an interception was a millisecond away, and it would have changed that game. Now, those interceptions did not come. The turnovers did not happen in Sunday's game at all. So that's obviously the next step. But I think that the pressure, the errant throws, the Divine Diablos, the Xavier Watts being in the throwing lanes of Baker Mayfield, like, that wasn't lost on me. So for me, it's like, I feel pretty confident that a tweak here or there, a millisecond here or there, changes how we feel about the defensive performance yesterday and how it feels moving forward. You come down with an interception in one of those moments. Just one. Yeah. You don't need 3, you don't need 4. In that game, you needed 1. And whether it's AJ Terrell laying out for 1 or Xavier Watts, one of the 2 times that he got his hands on the ball, or, a punch out somewhere, somehow, like, those moments matter in the momentum of a game, and not having those moments made it to where I said this yesterday, but the big moments for this defense weren't big enough to overcompensate for the miscues on offense. And I think, like, as soon as potentially the defense has a big moment, maybe it changes the way that the game goes. So for that reason, I'm not, super worried and concerned about this defensive performance, because I saw the intent. I saw kind of what it could look like. And for week 1, with a new defensive coordinator, a lot of new faces, I'm willing to kind of take some miscues here and there. Obviously, you got to clean up the leaky quarterback. Like, those are things that, I think you've got to take a step. You can't have Baker Mayfield running for 40 yards and picking up multiple first downs to keep the chains, to keep a drive alive. That can't happen as frequently as it did. But I think I did like what I saw from this defense, and being able for this first game to be a good building block for what they could be down the road if they stay healthy.
Tori, I think that's a great point. We talked about it a little bit yesterday. Like, we didn't like what we saw in terms of being able to contain Baker Mayfield, but you have a few practice runs, we'll call it, because we wouldn't necessarily look at JJ McCarthy or Bryce Young as world beaters in that space, but those would be, and I'll put it in quotes, tune-ups to get you ready for a Jaden Daniels, who will be and could be problematic in that space. So definitely agree with you on that one. And Aaron, for you, just looking at some of the areas of improvement that you might want to see some evolution, or maybe some next steps for next week, maybe building blocks on some of the good you saw this week on the defensive side.
Yeah, I thought the run defense played well, particularly when they were in their base defense. There was a drive, I think, in the second quarter where the Bucs were able to get the Falcons in some nickel looks in their 4-2 front. and were effective moving the ball down the field. But I felt like the Falcons pretty much tightened that up. And I'll be curious to see if upcoming opponents are trying to do a little bit more of that by getting the Falcons into their lighter boxes in that nickel front and trying to run the ball effectively against them. And how effective is that going to be? So I think that's an area that they can build upon moving forward. But overall, I think Tori's right. Like the defense, had a positive performance. The question is going to be, does the defense continue to improve? Because, that's one of the things about early season football, which is usually the defenses are a little bit ahead of the offenses. And so as offenses start to get a little bit sharper by the end of this month, are we going to continue to see the defense ascend, or are we seeing the best version of the Falcons defense? But I think there's a lot of reasons for now to think that this is not the best version of the Falcons defense, and the arrow is going to be pointing up for that unit. So that will be something to keep an eye on going forward. So I think overall, a lot of positives to take away from the Falcons defense. Obviously, certain things that you want to clean up, some situational things that you want to clean up that could be the difference in, especially in a game as close as this one. It's like, yeah, as Tori said, like one play that the Falcons defense makes versus not making, potentially changes the outcome of this game.
Yeah, and I like that you say the arrow is trending up, Aaron, because I'm sure nobody had on their bingo card that Billy Bowman Jr. was going to be the first out of this rookie class to get a sack. And of course, I know you guys said you had good returns. There were good returns from Divine Diablo, and you didn't necessarily think he was going to be that guy that we were talking about. So I think what that says to me is, no, we weren't having a conversation today about Jalen Walker. No, we weren't having a conversation today about James Pierce Jr. or even about Leonard Floyd, but that's a good thing because that means there's an opportunity for improvement even on top of the good things that we saw today from some of the guys that you were maybe expecting to see better things from. But alas, special teams, not that special for the Falcons. We'll continue to unpack that in Next Up. This episode of our Falcons Squad Show is brought to you by Upside. Hey, Falcons fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Well, stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now, or at least after you finish the Squad Show and start returning or earning cash at the pump today. So if you're like me, you got to head to the pump right after the show as well. Definitely going to take advantage of the Upside app. And you can use the limited time promo code touchdown and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. Now, at first, you might have thought like I did, this is too good to be true, but it's totally legit. I've actually used the app before, and there are other real people who are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, or an e-gift card for Amazon and other brands. How cool is that? So don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code touchdown for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code touchdown. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. Well, Jarvis, alas, we've said the good things we could say about the offense and the defense. I'm going to ask if you can find a silver lining for that special teams. Because I promised everybody, I promised our listeners, our audience, that we were going to try to find the silver lining in everything. Okay, fine. Don't find the darn silver lining. Just call the special teams what they were on Sunday, and then we'll find a silver lining in resetting for next week's show and next week's game. Go ahead. Say what you want to say about special teams.
They weren't helpful. They just gave up plays.
That is a good point.
Right?
You know what I'm saying? Like you know what I'm saying? I was trying to be positive on the Monday. This is Therapy Mondays. You know what I'm saying? Therapy Mondays is back. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's go. This is the first Therapy Monday of the season. So I'm trying to be positive. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to lie, though, and say that, hey, the special teams, no, they weren't helpful on Sunday, whether it be giving up a big old return that was just the worst possible times you can give up a big return. It happened. Yeah. And And then, of course, you know, I had the Younghoe Koo situation. I ain't gonna go back into that because I'm trying to find my Zen place, you know, as we, you know what I'm saying, wrap up this show. I really feel like I don't understand how is when you have guys who make this team solely for special teams, Mike Ford, and you don't go out there and perform. Like you allow the returner to get outside. Like that's one thing as a gunner. Don't allow your man to get outside of you. You don't do that. That's your number one rule. Just like when I'm talking about edge rush, AK. Hey man, don't let the quarterback get outside of you. Keep him inside, right? Like the same thing goes to show for Mike Ford as a gunner. Don't let the man get outside. And you do that at the worst possible moment and put your defense in a horrible situation. So yeah, those are some of the things that I just feel like, man, this unit used to be so tight. We never had to worry about this unit, like, for a long time. Like, going back to Keith Armstrong, we talked about Keith Armstrong on the post-game show. You know, Boye, you know, my guy. You know what I'm saying? Like, we're not used to this. We're not used to this. We're not.
I think the Dallas onside kick in 2021 just like really ruined special teams. Like, or I'm sorry, 2020, not 2021. 2020.
Yeah. Tori,
but like, never to return, right?
It hasn't been right since, you know. So yeah, all of these things, the moments you can point out throughout this game, and you're just like, man, if they had just made the tackle right there, defense would have been a good spot. Or if the kicker had made that particular kick, you know, in that spot, they would have been all right, man. Give your offense another chance. But that's what special teams supposed to do. Like when it comes to the return game, especially punt returns, if you can take away a first down that the offense has to get, that's all you ask for when it comes to the punt return. Or you know, you can stop them, pin them inside the 10-yard line. Yeah, that would be great as well. You know, Bradley Pinion, I can kind of give him, you know, he did his thing yesterday, but for overall OT, it was just truly frustrating to continue to see this special teams unit not show up in moments where we're used to them showing up in.
Yeah. And hey, listen, I think that you were as positive as one can be, all things considered, with what we saw yesterday. But yeah, Tori, I mean, when you start thinking back 4 and 5 years, just like kind of Jarvis was triggered yesterday about the thought that this is the first time since 2012, I think it was, that you had that opening drive touchdown scenario. And it's like, you know, after a while, you just kind of get triggered seeing the same things over and over again. And we talk about the importance of all three phases and how just a little flip of the field here or there, or just a little bit of giving Baker Mayfield more field to work with could also have been a change in the game.
Yeah. I know y'all have already talked about the kicking game,
no, come on,
but I have some things to say.
Yeah.
And I
it's Therapy Mondays. Go and lay on the couch, Tori. I
think honestly, what I'm gonna say is that I'm kind of done talking about the Falcons kicking game, because at this point there is a trend. There is obvious data to back up that there is an issue in Atlanta. The questions have been asked. The Falcons have made a statement over and over and over again that they trust and rely on Younghoe Koo, despite the evidence maybe potentially to the contrary. And that's that. It doesn't matter at this point, like how many times I write about Younghoe Koo and, you know, the misses that he's had in the last 2 years. The Falcons have made their decision, and until they do something different, I'm kind of done talking about it, because this is, at this point in time, like, you've chosen the direction of which you want to go with the kicking game. Do I agree with it? Do I not agree with it? Like, it doesn't matter what I think. I think the trends are what they are. The facts are what they are with the situation. The Falcons have made, it's kind of like you've made your decision. You've made your bed in this case scenario. Mm-hmm. And I kind of feel there is a certain sense of defeat that I feel about that situation. The fact that the confidence I feel about that situation wanes is like a tough place to be, that, you know, there is this lack of confidence that even I feel when they send out Younghoe Koo to kick a game winner. And even though in the last 7 times in a situation similar, he's made it, the trends are what they are. And there is a very obvious decline in Younghoe Koo's usage and also ability to make the kicks that he needs to make. And if the Falcons are going to continue to make the decision to run him out there, that's the decision that they're making. I'm not going to talk about it anymore.
Yeah. And that's understandable. If I can just say this, Jarvis, just kind of piggyback on what Tori said.
Sure.
No, I think you make great points, and we kind of alluded to your tweet on X and the article that you penned, and good stuff. And so, yeah, no, I'm glad you were able to bring that back full circle, because we agree on this show wholeheartedly. We're 4 for 4. It's a trend. Go ahead, Jarvis.
No, I feel seen by Tori. You know, like this is wonderful. I feel like we're making progress into this Koo situation, because for me, this is an issue. You know,
I will say this: there is no one who went to bat more for Koo than I did.
Oh, like, no doubt.
All last year, I kind of said he has an injury. They're working through a hip injury. There is he has won so many games for this team. He has been so clutch for this team. You have to go over, you know, he's just in a decline. He's working through something. Yesterday was the chance to prove that all of that was right, and all of that now feels wrong.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. I don't mind the Falcons. I really didn't necessarily mind the Falcons having a quote unquote competition and him, you know, winning it and beating out Lenny Craig and all this stuff. But you can't marry yourself to a decision. Like, you can't, like in today's league, it's all about what have you done for me lately. I understand being loyal to your players and all that stuff. Like, loyalty also tells the truth. Like, I can't lie to my wife and say, hey, baby, we're going to be together forever. But I can't lie to her. And when it comes to certain situations and issues she might have or I might have, I have to be honest with her. It's still all love, baby. You know what I'm saying? You still going to hug each other afterwards. You know what I'm saying? Like, but I got to tell you the truth if we're going to move forward and have some success in our marriage. Same thing when it comes to the Falcons. In order to have success this year and get into the postseason, you cannot run that dude out there on a consistent basis. You can't.
Yeah.
You can't do it. He's proven himself. He's showing you who he is right now today in 2025 on September 8th. Yes. Yeah. This is who Koo is.
Right. And I think too, Aaron, sometimes when you have those situations that are so fresh, the rope is much shorter, right? So you have the situation, different position, somewhat different situation, but you're getting the same feel. And that's with Kirk Cousins. Like, you ran him out. There were questions. Is it mental? Is he really 100% back? Is it the lingering injury from last season? Is it a new injury from this season? And then by the time the decision was made to move to Michael Penix Jr., it felt like too little, too late, if you will. And you just don't want to get in that situation. And obviously, there's the trend that was online. I don't want to overreact, but so we're not trying to be the overreact show, but we are trying to be the show that legitimately looks at the numbers and say the numbers don't lie.
Yeah, no, you bring up the Kirk Cousins situation. I talked about that on Locked On Falcons after our post game show, where like a lot of the feeling of last year is the Falcons waited too late and they could have saved their season had they benched Kirk Cousins a week or two earlier or whatnot. Wherever you wind up feeling about that, like that's what the lingering feeling is, and now that's going to be applied to Younghoe Koo, where you're going to have a bunch of people very vocally being like, you have to make the switch now, as opposed to waiting a week and seeing if he bounces back. And if he goes out there next week and kicks and misses kicks against the Vikings, you'll be like, well, he cost you another game and you've already, this whole decision, you're 0-2 and the mathematical odds of making the playoff, all that stuff gets played into it. And so it's going to be an interesting dynamic to see whether or not this coaching staff the pendulum swings in the opposite direction. Because you kind of saw this happen with Arthur Smith, right? Where a big question in his second year here was, do you bench Marcus Mariota for Desmond Ridder? And Arthur Smith was like, we're going to ride it out with Marcus Mariota until it completely fell off the tracks. And then with Desmond Ridder, it was basically like the first sign of trouble. It's like, well, we're going to Taylor Heineke. And then you had this sort of musical chairs going back and forth because of that whole situation. And like, you could easily see a similar situation arising. You could see a situation where you move off of Koo, you go to Lenny Krieg, the German sensation, and he goes out there and kicks really well. You could also see him look like a typical young kicker in the NFL and struggle. And then what do you do at that point? Are you giving Rodrigo Blankenship a call? And so like, I don't envy this coaching staff for being in this situation. Ultimately, like, we will judge them as we are wont to do based off of the results, right? And if you get the positive results, we'll be like, yeah, you made the right decision. If you don't get the positive results, we'll be like, you were terrible, and you like all the stuff that happens in these spaces. So ultimately, we'll see what they wind up doing. But I think Tori's right in the sense of like, until the conversation changes, there's not much of a conversation.
Yeah, I think too. And just one quick note on that is like, I don't know if Lenny Krieg is the answer. I don't know who like, right? Like, to Free's point, it's like, who do you look to in this situation? You've given Koo a ton of chances. Do you look to this new guy? Like, where's the decision here? Like, and I don't know if there is at this point, I don't feel confident in either decision. And that's what makes it so difficult. And so like, without like feeling very confident about the Falcons kicking game moving forward is like, I don't know what the decision is because I don't really feel confident in either one right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. It's like, oftentimes when you hear that a coach should be fired, like fire this coach and replace him with who, or replace her with whom. So that becomes the question, like, as not so good as Younghoe Koo is, where do you go from here? What is the answer to the question of who's going to really give you that kicking game? That if you get in this situation again, and you can, or it's a game-winning situation, sending it to overtime, whatever it is, that you feel confident that whoever is about to kick the ball through the uprights is actually going to get it through the uprights. Yeah, like we said, not an enviable position, but hey, that's why they pay Raheem Morris and Terry Fontenot the big bucks. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Falcons Squad Show your first listen of the day. Be sure to stop by Locked On Falcons with your host, Aaron Freeman, as your second listen. You can catch Jarvis as a frequent contributor for Locked On Falcons and check out some of Tori's great work at AtlantaFalcons.com. See you next time.